What does Harvard do now that they've reaffirmed Claudine Gay in this position?
Well, you're absolutely right that the key thing about her is that she's a DEI hire. They can't fire her without actually rejecting the core philosophy that caused her to make such a mistake in testimony to begin with. The problem with what she said and what Liz McGill said and the other woman from MIT is that it actually was reflective of an overall philosophy. You know, I'm very much in favor of forgiving people who make silly statements. We all make silly statements. So many of us are on the air all the time. You might say something that they want to cancel you for. And I always feel like if it doesn't reflect your heart, if it doesn't reflect your philosophy, let it go. We should be eager to let things go and eager to show grace. But the problem with what these people said is that it was an actual reflection of an overall philosophy that puts Jews in a place that no other minority is in. The Jews, as I've always said, I always insist on this, Jew hatred is unique. It is not part of the othering of other people. It is something very specific. It's a rejection of all of Western civilization because the Jews wrote the book that gave us the God that transformed the classical mindset into the European mindset. They are the people who gave us the identity we have. And so the rejection of them is really a rejection of all of Western culture, of all of religious culture. And they mean it. They mean that hatred against the West, that hatred against freedom, that hatred against the American way, where they attack Israel only as a proxy for the rest of us. So Claudine Gay is not going to go away for now. But, you know, the last time we talked, Megyn, you said that this is going to be a moment when these people are exposed. And I was a little skeptical because I don't think they're exposing anything. I think the people who support them already know what they believe, already know who they are, and they mean it. They mean to hate the West. They mean to hate the Jews. They mean to hate the God of the Bible. They mean all of that stuff, and none of that is hidden from the people who already support them. But I'm a little bit more hopeful now because I was pretty amazed at the widespread reaction against what these people said. I was expecting a lot more from the buttheads, the but, and well, she meant this, and well, she was trying to say this. But really, they didn't peek their heads over the parapet because they would have had their heads taken off as they deserve. This is not a question of free speech. These people are not in favor of free speech, as you point out. You can't go to these colleges as a conservative without starting a riot that is often caused by the administration. It's not about free speech. It is about the hatred of the West, the hatred of the Jews, the hatred of the biblical worldview in a general sense, not like you have to believe in everything the Bible says, but simply in the way that the Bible infiltrates everything we think and everything we are. So, you know, I actually think that maybe people and maybe important people with money, the money that supports these universities, are beginning to see that this is a mistake. You know, Jews are hiding out like Anne Frank in these universities. They're ditching their symbols of their faith and their symbols of their, racial identity so that they're not attacked. And nobody is doing a damn thing about it. We hear a lot about Islamophobia, but the statistics show that the increase in anti-Jewish hate crimes is huge, where the increase in Islamophobic hate crimes is small and coming up from almost nothing. So this is a real philosophy, a real revelation, a real exposure of something central to the DEI woke idea. And I think you may be right, Megyn. I think maybe this is getting out. Maybe people are seeing this, and Harvard is going to make a stand. Let them try it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I do think we're winning over every woke Jewish American. Every woke Jewish American, to the extent they're out there, they're now on our side. They get it. They get it in an acute way, other than these weird, Jewish Voices for Peace, which are, they're not real. That's not a real thing. They're not pro-Israel, and they're certainly not pro-Jewish persons. They're on the other side. But in any event, here's the thing about Claudine Gay, and I maintain my optimism that you and I discussed. However, I'm not optimistic about people like Claudine Gay, and the way, like what's happening on the university systems is just, it's a joke. And even getting rid of Claudine Gay wouldn't have helped, but at least it would have sent some sort of a message. Here's instead what they've done. And these people are so disgusting. God, it's disgusting. People want to get their kid into this school and listen to this board. Okay, Penny Pritzker. We talked with Tucker yesterday. The Pritzkers, they're like the number one funders of the trans agenda. They're the ones trying to shove, your boy can be a girl into every third grade in America. She's on the board. She's one of the ones who decided that Claudine Gay can stay. You go down the list. It's mostly women. I have to say, I'm sorry to condemn my own sex, but these women, they tend to be the worst when it comes to wokeism. They're just pathetic and they think they're being empathetic and instead they're just being pathetic and they need to grow a pair. Okay, here's what they say. First of all, President Gay has apologized. She's apologized for how she handled her congressional testimony. Well, guess who didn't give two damns about an apology when a young man who had gone to the Parkland School down in Florida where there had been that terrible school shooting applied to Harvard and got in. Then it came out that he was part of this conversation with a bunch of other nimrods who were 16 years old at the time, where he said hateful things. He used the N-word and he said a phrase like, kill all the effing Jews. However, he came out immediately and said this was an absurd conversation in which a bunch of adolescents were intentionally trying to use the worst words and say the most insane things imaginable. This was not this guy expressing a genuinely held opinion. It was a bunch of dopes at 16 years old saying provocative things to be more provocative. Guess what he did? He apologized when those private texts, not public testimony before Congress, surfaced. Do you think Claudine Gay gave him a pass? No, she put the boot on the forehead and shoved him right out of Harvard. A kid. He didn't get any grace from Claudine Gay. Then they say, we unanimously stand in support of her. At Harvard, we champion open discourse and academic freedom. Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple. I know you know this. Ron Sullivan, he was a dean of one of these schools. He got booted out of that position because he had the temerity as a defense lawyer to represent Harvey Weinstein. That's it. That was his sin. He did what criminal defense lawyers do. He represented a client who was in trouble with the criminal law. For that, he lost his post. But they champion open discourse and academic freedom. This was outside of his role as a dean. This is in his private life outside of Harvard where he works as a lawyer. David Kane taught at Harvard in 2020. He was accused of writing offensive blog posts under a pseudonym. What were his sins? He claimed that most black students at Williams College wouldn't have been admitted if not for affirmative action, and that Williams would be wrong to punish students for political speech, even if that speech were in support of white nationalist groups. Well, he's right. He's right. I mean, there's been, KKK marches in this country. That's allowed in the United States of America. You can't punish people for it. You can choose not to hire them, but you can't fire somebody for saying, hey, we have a First Amendment, which is all he said. He got the boot. His one-year contract was not renewed by Harvard. Then there's Carol Hooven. This case has been in the news for quite some time. She was a lecturer on human evolutionary biology. Human evolutionary biology, she knows a thing or two about this subject at Harvard. When promoting a scholarly book about testosterone, she suggested on national television, there are two biological sexes. Male and female. In response, a graduate student who also served as the director of the DEI group at Harvard denounced her as a transphobe. And guess what? Her colleagues stopped talking to her. The administration failed to defend her. The graduate students bullied her. This is all in The Atlantic, not a right-wing publication. And she was forced to take a leave of absence, said that as of January 23, she retired from her long-term teaching and administrative job at Harvard. I don't remember the support of open discourse and academic freedom for Carol Hooven, who once again, unlike Claudine Gay, was making comments more in the personal lane, not in her official role as a professor. These people are disgusting hypocrites, Andrew.
Well, and not only that, what she was saying was true. And you left out Larry Summers, who was president of Harvard and had to resign because he suggested that among the many reasons why women may not join math and STEM was that it's possible that at the highest level of math and STEM, men are better at it than women are.
And
which
Roland
statistics
Fryer.
do.
Roland Fryer,
Yeah.
who came to the conclusion that there is not a massive problem with racism in police shootings and was promptly defunded thanks to two trumped up BS small ball alleged Me Too allegations against him. Who stuck the knife in and twisted it? Claudine Gay, who wanted him not only to have his research lab defunded, which happened, but to have his tenure revoked. A black professor, Claudine Gay. This woman now, who we're supposed to, she apologized. She's the one to lead us into tomorrow. And they go on to say, She'll address anti-Semitism and other forms of hate effectively and courageously. It's the other forms of hate that saved her ass, Andrew, and namely her imagined hate by all white people against any persons of color.
You know, people don't understand what happens to conservative speakers when they go to these universities, and almost all universities with any kind of left-wing bent whatsoever. They think the students come out and protest and riot and heckle us. And that's true, they do. But before that happens, the administration gins them up. A lot of these students don't know a conservative speaker from Adam. You know, they're not listening to the Daily Wire. They're not listening to you. They're not listening. They don't really know who we are a lot of the time because they're completely sequestered within a left-wing bubble. The reason they come out and the reason they get excited is because the administration, and especially the DEI parts of the administration, send out pages and papers to instigate that kind of anger by taking quotes out of context, by making us look like we're hateful or we're, brutal in some sort of philosophical way, and by telling them that words are violence, which is hilarious when you're actually not protesting against people calling for the extermination of the Jews. So this is embedded in the university. This is not something that students just pops into students' heads. This is not something that they get from their professors and then they translate it into action. This is something that the administration is selling very, very hard. And so any kind of defense of what she's saying in terms of free speech, in terms of tolerance, is a complete lie and complete hypocrisy. I'm not even sure I would go as far as you would in defending free speech, in the sense that I believe that calling for violence against people is actually illegal speech. I mean, you can't call on people to kill each other and threaten people with physical violence. That is in fact illegal. And some of the things that are happening are so threatening to Jewish students that, as I say, they're living on campus like Anne Frank, hiding away. I think that there is absolutely reason to expel some of the people who take those actions and to call for them to stop and to penalize them. Again, I'm a free speech purist. I believe you can put forward any idea that you want. But if you express that idea in terms of threats and violence, I think that that's actually illegal and violates even your First Amendment rights.
I've got big news from Bonner Wines. This is only for true adventure seekers who are looking for more in their wine drinking experience than your grocery store big box wines. The Bonner Private Wine Partnership is releasing a wine so rare it sells out practically every time it's been available. They invite you to come on an extraordinary journey to a remote vineyard where a never-before imported gem has wine enthusiasts everywhere raving. Picture this. Ready? Altitudes of up to 9,000 feet. Grapes up there defy nature's harshest challenges, thriving in poor soil, enduring extreme UV rays, and facing a thin atmosphere and volatile temperature swings. How can this be? How does the wine survive in this climate? Well, it does. The result of all this is a one-of-a-kind extreme altitude Malbec. Now, I have arranged special access for my listeners to get a bottle of this rare wine. Here's how you do it. Go to bonnerprivatewines.com, BONNER/MK, and become a member of the Bonner Private Wine Partnership. But act fast because you don't want to miss your chance. bonnerprivatewines.com/MK. Go there now for wine at 50% off plus free shipping. bonnerprivatewines.com/MK today to get your wine delivered directly to your doorstep. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.